Hello everyone. So our friends in Muzaffarabad are facing some electricity issues with the electricity. They're trying to resume that, and they'll be joining us shortly. Until then, let's start off with our session. So my name is Ali Shah. I'm here from Citizens Archive of Pakistan, and I'll be moderating your session today. So a very warm hello to everyone. The book that we're going to be discussing today is The Bookseller of Kabul, written by this Norwegian journalist, Asanes Serestedt. So the book, the book that we have on hand is very close to the lives that we are seeing in Afghanistan and very close to the lives that we have in Pakistan. It deals around the issues of gender role, maintaining honor through conformity, and
Okay, okay. Sorry for this disruption. We have some internet issues here. Normal.
it's all right. It's all right. So I was just introducing myself, and I told you that my name is Ali Shah, and I'm just going to be moderating your session today. The book that we are discussing, as you know, is The Bookseller of Kabul. It's a very interesting read. It deals around very complicated issues such as gender role, such as maintaining honor through conformity, the whole problem of honor and how honor is seen, taken in the both countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan, and then certain ideas of beauty, certain ideas, superficial ideas of colors and racism. So it's a very interesting read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I would like now would like to know from the participants in Bayam how was their experience of reading this book and what were the lessons that they were able to learn from it. So over to you, Bayam.
Can you please repeat it?
Okay, so I was just briefly discussing the book that we have on our hand, The Bookseller of Kabul. I was talking about how it deals around very complicated yet very essential issues that both Pakistan and Afghanistan face, such as gender role, such as the whole concept of honor and how we see honor in our society, and the superficial ideas of beauty that we have in our mind, both in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. So yeah, I was keen to hear the views of your participants there. How did they find the book? How was their experience of reading the book, and what was uh, the lessons that they were able to learn from the book? So yeah,
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. We have our participants. Actually, they gathered here to share their ideas about what they have learned from this book, what they got, and they're ready, I think, for sharing their thoughts and experience for this. We will start for those who are ready for expressing their ideas. If anyone can volunteer for this, you, no, it doesn't matter, ladies here. Ladies to her. If you believe in gender, you believe in ladies first.
no, anybody who would like to. So whoever is more comfortable in being the first person, yeah. And there's no
Yes,
right and wrong answer to this. Just your ideas. How was it for you to read this book and reliving the stories of this book? So yeah.
yes. For some, for to be refreshed for our participants, I will start for that. I have read the book, just a bit of that, about the author. I think she's a freelance journalist working in the wars, working in the war zones, especially Afghanistan, Iraq, and the war in Kosovo, I guess. She's the author of many books about the war, the presence of the war, the people, those who are living in the war zones, and fluent in Russian and Spanish, now living in Oslo and the United States. She's the author of the Bookseller of Kabul, one of the bestsellers in the world, and The Angel of the Grozny, Get Back to the World, and some other books. This book was actually written in 2002 and translated in 2003. The start of the journey was when she arrived to Kabul in 2001, immediately after the Taliban have gone from the Afghanistan, and there was the country was in a very critical situation, actually between the start of democracy and the end of a fundamentalist regime. She started has trip by going to Panjshir, living in the NATO base. And after the fall of the Taliban regime, accidentally she kind of met a bookseller named Sultan Khan. This is the main actor of this book, and all the scenarios we are talking about is about this boxer and about his family and those activities going on in this family that she represented as the family, as a sample of the Afghan culture in this book. And she moved to this family, and she asked the Sultan Khan to be part of this culture and learn about the culture and beliefs and daily lives of an Afghan family. So what was amazing about this family was this family was was refugee in the Pakistan, and they got educated in the Pakistan, and this shows a very tight relationship between these two nations and between these two peoples. After that, this book, actually the author of this book kind of focused on the cultural aspects of this community, about the beliefs, about the day-to-day activities, about the day-to-day habits, about the marriage, about the how they cook, about how they go inside, about how the people interact with each other and everything in this community, going on in this community. She describes the Taliban regime as a fundamentalist regime, as a regime that was against the art, against the music, against the dance, against anything in a democratic nation in other countries. So this was a very small briefing about the book. If we have a volunteer, we'll start with the readers of this community as book club. If anyone volunteer for this to start. Yes. You can express what you have learned from this book and what was the main thoughts of this book as the author thinks.
If you can, I'm sorry. If you can please remove your marks and come closer to the camera while you're speaking, so that because there's a very distortion in the voice. So I mean, if you could just come closer and speak so that I can hear you properly.
Yes, thank you. ماسک خدا بکشن چون با ماسک هست صدا چی نمیشه. نه ماسک بکش.
Again, I'm sorry to disturb you, Ali. If you are using, I see that you're using an additional mic. I would request that you do not use that mic and make the participant come close to the laptop screen while they're speaking. Because with the mic, there's a lot of distortion and echoing. So the voice does not really come clearly to us. So if you could just please ask your participants to come closer and speak with us in a direct manner without using the mic so that we can hear more coherently. Can you hear me? You need to unmute your mic too. So yeah. Hello.
Yes. Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I hear you.
That's great. That's great. Thank you very much for joining this. I'm Ali. I'm here from the Citizens Archive of Pakistan, and I'll be moderating the session today. Unfortunately, our friends from Afghanistan, they were just with us, but they are also facing some problem with the internet. So they'll be rejoining us shortly. So the book that we're discussing today is The Bookseller of Kabul. I'm sure that you guys had the book and you were able to read the book. So let's just start off with the conversation that how was it for you to read the book and what were the lessons that you were able to learn from it?
What I learned is it is a good book to learn about Afghani people, especially about the bookseller Sultan Khan and his family members, his wives and sister, brothers and mothers and his cousin, which when a writer and a sitter meet him first time in Kabul. She carrying 7 books from his store, and she learned about something very well from his books. So she decided to go to his family and write also a book on Sultan Khan. She wrote in book that Sultan Khan was a writer who was written about the tradition in Afghanistan, and also his courteous way. She tell about how Afghani there is a no Afghani brides do not decide about their suitors. They don't have allowed to talk about their suitors. But why she can't, if she wants to marry someone, their parents didn't allow them. And about the burning, she also wrote in book about the burning books, which is the second part, I think, of the book, that the peoples are gathering around the bonfire, and they are dancing and taking teas around it. That's so which I read from this book.
So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so much. So the bookseller of Kabul deals around issues which are very similar to Pakistan and Afghanistan. So we talk about strict gender roles. We talk about maintaining a sense of honor and how honor is taken in both cultures in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. So while reading the book, oh, what were the aspects where you were able to see the similarities between the two cultures, being Pakistan and Afghanistan? Were you able to highlight similarities? And if there were, would you like to share that with us?
I think it is the same thing here for us, but nowadays it not matter. But when our parents got married, it matters that brides are not decided. They have no any suggestions about their grooms. Just their parents can decide that how they can marry to each other, or it may or boy or girl. They don't have to decide. So it is a similarity between us and Afghanistan. But nowadays in Pakistan, I think it is not be a people cannot, especially girls cannot have authority to decide that how can they marry to a person. Their parents can decide. And the boys also sometimes in some places like Kashmir, in Kashmir, parents can decide. In Kashmir, parents can decide it that he had to marry someone or she had to marry someone or not. I think it is a similarity between us and Afghanistan.
So you're saying that even now in Kashmir, majority of the weddings are arranged marriages where parents choose a suitor, or you're saying that's not the
Yes,
situation? Okay, thank you
yes,
so
yes.
much.
Arranged married over.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So let's moving on to our participants in Afghanistan. What I would like to ask from them is that the book also gives a very detailed explanation of the culture that the author saw in Afghanistan. As initially mentioned, that the author came to this town after the 9/11, 2 weeks after the 9/11, to understand the Afghani culture and understand the differences and the impact of what was happening politically on the lives of Afghani people. So while reading this book about your own country, about this culture of your own country, how was it for you? Were you able to agree with what the writer has written, or do you have certain disagreement with the writer and you do not agree with how she portrayed the Afghani culture? Bayam, were you able to understand my question? Bayam? Ali? Are you able to hear me? You need to unmute your mic so that I can hear you. Unmute. You need to unmute your mic. Your mic is still mute. You see the mute button? You need to unmute it. Yeah. Perfect. Now I will be able to hear you.
yourself?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. In the name of Allah, hello to everyone. As I have read it, this book, it was a very great book that it is written by Hassan Srisat, and it was about a bookseller of Kabul. His name was Sultan Khan, by the name of Sultan Khan, and the book focus was mm, on the culture of Afghanistan, and also it was introduced
The behavior.
have you
Yeah. Uh,
Uh, okay. And actually, when I was reading this book, I was enjoying because it was according to the culture of Afghanistan, and also according to the things that are the custom of Afghanistan. Some of them are also there right now in Afghanistan, but some of them are not. For example, as our first system for Pakistan said, the decision of marriage that
but and also they allow their family or their children to go school to participate to every work that they want to do. That it was that.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We had two of our friends. They shared already their thoughts and beliefs, what they learned so far. We want to have a third volunteer. Can you please join us here? Now we will have our third friend sharing their knowledge and their thoughts about what they have learned, and does this book represent Afghan culture as a whole, a wide variety of communities living in this region or not? Thank you.
Hello to everyone. I hope everyone be healthy. Mm.
I can hear you. I
About
can
this,
hear you.
about this book that I read and that I understood, this book was the main focus was about Afghan culture and Taliban regime that was when the Taliban had was in Afghanistan. They are not our culture. That was the Taliban rules that they people of speak and to go out to learn to education, but they are not culture. There was the same rule that the Taliban punished to the woman, but nowadays they have the university and the schools and that written by Athens suggested shared a journalism that to go and to see meet men by Sultan Khan. He was book seller in Kabul.
Okay, okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So, okay, okay. So I would just like to ask one question. I would just
Okay.
like to ask one question. So, okay. So, how do you feel like in the book, the life of Afghani women has been represented as that they don't have a public life and they obviously it's shown that it's not promoted to get education. Seeing you here and seeing connecting with you and other participants in Afghanistan on a daily basis, we understand that the education system has been changing. More and more women are now in Afghanistan are seeking education and are being encouraged by their parents to go and seek education. So while reading the book and while reading the lives of these Afghani women and how they were judged for their beauty and how they were restricted by the male patriarchy, how was it for you? How was it for you to relive that experience and reconnect with that? Ali, were you able to hear me?
Hello. Hello. Do you have my audio? Can you please check your hands if you have my audio?
I'm
Hello,
sorry.
do
I'm
you?
so sorry. Yes, Ali, I'm so sorry. We are again disconnecting. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Now,
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I
Okay.
can hear
Okay.
you
Thank you.
perfectly. Thank you so much for your patience.
Welcome, welcome. This time I want to share my experience about what was the book
So,
about. As I read this book was focusing on two major things. This was totally talking about the war in Afghanistan, about the situation of Afghanistan during these 2, 3, or 4 decades before she arrived to Kabul. She was talking about the Taliban regime, the pre-Taliban regime, the communist regime. She was reflecting the situation of all these years that Afghanistan has gone through. The communist regime, she kind of expressed the ideas of Salman from the whole communist regime that came to Afghanistan. They kind of made Afghanistan as a country of that was bounded to some rules, some strict rules, not believing in democracy. Although there was some girls' rights issues and education, but the whole regime was not respecting the people's choice, the whole democracy thing that we have in the world. After that, Afghanistan gone through another fundamentalist religious regime, totally opposite of the communist regime, the Taliban. I'm very happy that the Pakistan has not gone through these steps, and they were not kind of influenced by these critical changes at a very short time, at 4 or 5 decades. During the Taliban, we had a very fundamental religious group ruling here. That was that kind of made Afghanistan to be stopped in this stopped during the development. and especially most of the women were affected by this regime to kind of stop the education, stop the presence in the community as a whole, stop being present in the governance and their role in the government and organizations. And totally, the women were stopped from making changes. They were bounded to a family, a home, and a bokra, not to see, and that was the whole a story that the author was talking about. But there is a point to be mentioned that what Afghanistan was 2 decades before the time that the author came here and write a book. This Afghanistan is totally different. Afghanistan now is a democratic country. People believe in democracy. People now allow their families to kind of respect the women, respect the girls, respect the education, respect the right of education for the girls. Now, what we have is a kind of a changed and reformed Afghanistan than 2001, 2002, even from the time that the Taliban was ruling, or before the Taliban, the communists were ruling. We have a post-Taliban Afghanistan and the Talibani Afghanistan now. These two are kind of different. The culture are changed, and what we have now is not 100% that was at the time of Taliban. Thank you so much.
So I very much agree with you all. Phases that Afghanistan has been through, and the people in Afghanistan have been through. The situation in Pakistan have been very similar to that. As we see in the 80s, there was a dictatorship in Pakistan which was very fundamentalist, and then we see the liberalization. And I feel like both of our countries have kind of grown in a parallel space where we have grown together. And as situation in Pakistan got better, the situation in Afghanistan also got better. And we both nations are very much linked together. What I'm interested in asking to you is, Bayam, can you hear me? Ali, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what I'm interested in asking is that, like you mentioned, that there is a post-Taliban Afghanistan, and there is a pre-Taliban Afghanistan. So how sitting today in Afghanistan, which has had two democratic governments of first of all of Mr. Karzai and then now of Mr. Ghani, how do you feel the culture of Afghanistan is similar or different to the culture of Afghanistan, which was pre-Taliban, before the
Free time.
communist
Yes.
revolt and before Talibanization? How was the culture then, and how is the culture now? Are there similarities?
Okay. Thank you so much. I got your question. During the Taliban, there were some rules, some strict rules, as you know, the fundamentalist regime believing not in democracy, believing not in election, believing the specific group ruling out the country. Can you hear me, please? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
yes, I already said actually in my part of my thoughts about the Taliban in Afghanistan and the Afghanistan after the Taliban. During the Taliban, as I said earlier, it was a fundamentalist group ruling out the country, not believing in democracy, not believing in the culture of respect for human, as Sultan Khan already said that in the books, the Sultan Khan,
Okay.
and I was very disappointed toward the behavior of the men and the superiority of the men that is in the Afghan community. But now, as I'm speaking now with you, this is not a matter. We have girls, we have ministers, we have the women in the ruling organization in the Afghanistan. We have huge participation of women in our country, especially talking about the women, the rights, the human rights, actually. But if I want to kind of mention another theme of speech, theme of that the author actually focused on that, the marriage thing, the proposal thing, the marriage thing, the whole marriage thing that is going on in Afghanistan. Actually, if you have an idea about the communities living in Afghanistan, we have diverse set of communities living in Afghanistan. The southern part, the northern part, the central part, the eastern and the western part. Actually, the central and the northern part and the western part have a kind of they are not similar in culture. They are not similar in culture with the with the southern part. They of southern Afghanistan rather than the central Afghanistan. In central Afghanistan, actually, after the Taliban marriage culture, kind of the boys and the girls, actually the educated boy as educated girls, they are the decision makers about their future. They are enrolled in making decisions in their family. They have the authority to kind of be involved in this decision of marriage thing about whether they kind of get engaged or not. The kind of the thing that the author said about the rice thing, the oil thing, that they kind of get the whole trading of the girls for money and some other stuff. We don't. I don't say that they kind of disappeared completely in this region we are living, but we are in the process of going out from these whole bad cultures and kind of reform the whole culture to kind of make marriage thing about the marriage culture specifically that we make the marriage thing more easy for the youth generation now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing. I thought
Welcome.
it was really nice. And I feel like our friends in Muzaffarabad have joined us. Uh, Ali, if you can mute your mic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So moving on to our friends in Muzaffarabad, they have read the book and they have shared their opinion about the book as well. So I would like to ask our friends in Muzaffarabad that the book also talks about the standards of beauty and the concept of honor that we have both in Pakistan and Afghanistan, in society. So I would like to ask maybe a female participant from Muzaffarabad on how was it for her to read about these aspects of beauty standards, the concept of honor and how honor is portrayed in the book, where well when Sharifa has tries to basically make excuse for her husband Sultan for marrying Sonia, who was her second wife. She kind of does that to save her own honor. So this whole idea of honor and this idea of beauty standards of being young and being fair and being tall, what do you have to say about that? And what are your views about that?
Will you repeat your question in some words?
My question was that the book Seller of Kabul talks about very important issues of honor, how honor is seen in our societies, both Afghanistan and Pakistan, where we also see that the first wife of Sultan, Sharifa, tries to make up excuses for Sultan to marry. When Sultan decides to marry another wife, which was Sonia, she tries to make up excuses why not to shelter Sultan from the shame, but to shelter herself from the shame. So she considers that if she would be seen as a woman, she would be seen as an inadequate wife. And if she goes and revolt against it, her honor would be in question. So, how do you see this whole situation of honor, and do you see that in your society?
Yes, honor is today here in our society. Honor is somehow you can say that honor is important, but there are many marriages are done by their fathers and their family. The honor is not somehow. I can't understand your question well because your voice is not clear from the last
I'm
section.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so let me summarize my question. My question is that in Pakistani society, women who are married and they want to have a divorce or they want to leave their husband, they don't do that because they see that if they divorce an husband, it would affect their honor and they will not be considered an honorable woman. So we
मुझे
see that in the Pakistani
कि
society.
औरत के लिए
So what are your views upon it?
बताओ ना नहीं है in our society there is no freedom for women to divorce her husband या फिर इस तरह से कुछ
Here in our society, there is no freedom for a girl to divorce her husband or ask anything or say anything about this. But in some of cases, we listen here after a year or 1.5 year that she got divorced and she got divorced because there are some other issues with respect and other there are before their issue are the issues of their families like that. And there are, due to honor, there are too much cases are here in Muzaffarabad.
Okay, so do you agree with that culture, or do you are against that culture, or are you against that culture?
do you in favor or against
I I am not in against nor in favor. I have no point of view. If you are not agree to live with anybody, then how can you marry him? Don't do this if you are
Very well,
angry. Don't marry.
very well said. Maybe if we have another participant from Muzaffarabad who would also like to share his views upon the book.
Yeah.
अच्छा मैच में अच्छा सारा कम है सारा कम है यही इसी को डिफाइन करें ना इसी चीज़ को कि निकाह जो है वो तलाक का होना चाहिए औरत के पास नहीं होना चाहिए या फिर जो इश्यूज फेस कर रही है चलो उर्दू में बता दो बैठो चलो बैठो मैं इंग्लिश में
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Zara. Today we'll discuss about the book seller. क्वेश्चन बताइए
वही ना निकाह मतलब पाकिस्तान की सोसाइटी में औरत को ये हक नहीं है आर यू अगेंस्ट और फेवर इन फेवर ये कह रही हूँ ना आर यू इन फेवर यानी आर यू इन फेवर अबाउट डाइवोर्स और नॉट बस ये हाँ ये फ्रीडम होनी चाहिए औरत के पास नहीं होनी चाहिए वो खुद तलाक दे ना दे चलो बोलो ना फिर we should include this in our nikah nama and the woman should use her authority to divorce her husband
I think the woman will use her authority
to divorce
or
harassment
harassment cases.
It's all right. It's all right. Thank
अच्छा तो
thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your views with us and coming here and speaking. Thank you so much. So we're running.
चांद आ
Both
जाओ
all of our three ends, we were facing internet issues, but we managed to. Uh, I would now like to move towards the closing remarks. So I would take one closing remarks from Afghanistan and then a closing remark on from uh, Muzaffarabad. But before that, I would just like to which are that cultures are very dynamic, traditions are very dynamic. As civilizations go through their time, they adapt and change their culture, and they adapt and change their practices. So what we practiced in the past, what happens in the past, does not influence, does not is not a really good indicator for our present and our future. Changes do happen, societies do change, society learns and adapts to new situation. So going towards Afghanistan, I would just like our friends in Bayam to share their closing remarks and if they have any, and yeah, any note that they want to leave on.
Thank you so much. At the end, we have one of our small, very good lectures and book readers. We want to ask him about what he kind of got out from this
ये
book,
ये पकड़ो
his kind of knowledge from this book. Thank
थोड़ा
you so
आगे हो
much.
गया
And then we'll have the final remarks after our reader kind of shares
ये
his
खराब है
experience. Thank you so much.
Sure, sure.
हाँ चलो मुजफ्फर
In the name of Allah,
चांद हो आओ
the book written by Asim Siersted, a journalist that became famous after writing the bookseller of Kabul. The Sultan Khan first he was an engineer, then he became a top that knowledge is. A bookseller wrote the important and library for books from Pakistan and Iran. The people of Kabul. He had 3 books store and he was rich in case he get married with a 16 years old girl by the name of Sonia when he was 40 years old. Family unhappy. In one of the parts of the books mentioned in fast in Afghanistan love wasn't woman choose is there. Father, brothers, uncles, and their family chooses. He knows that living in this situation for both men, women, especially for women, is very hard because we have a big discrimination between boys and girls or men or women. But we have to fight with this challenge and repel with this problem.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having
Thank you so
us.
much for sharing your views.
Welcome. Our reader has already shared his thoughts as part of the closing for this whole amazing program. To kind of express some remarks. As we said, this whole thing was about the culture of Afghanistan. As I got from our friends in Muzaffarabad, there are similarities exist here because these two nations are first was part of a very big region. They share culture, they share beliefs, they share the same religion. The whole Islam thing and what we got from Islamic culture, we practice Islamic cultures in our daily life, and but we also have some differences. Maybe Pakistan has gone through changes better, and they are in more better states rather than Afghanistan. When we talk about the whole country, but Afghanistan or Afghanistan people are kind of they are. Trying to go forward, go more in a higher level of human rights and respect for human, respect for women, respect for education, and the whole book reading thing we want to go through, and we are trying to reach that step to make a better community for whole people living in Afghanistan, and make Afghanistan a community, a peaceful community. And we hope this peace can come in Afghanistan, and we kind of have better relationship and between the countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. We admire the help and the assistance of Pakistani nation that have helped the Afghan people through this whole decades of war and make this Afghan people living in Pakistan. They accept them as refugees, they make them educated, and we admire that. We want to thank for all these things from Pakistan people. The whole government thing, we should not let the whole government things, the government policies, our government policies to interfere this relationship between these two big nations. And we believe in friendship between Afghanistan and Pakistan. As I don't know Urdu, but I have heard this thing. Pakistan this season, Dablad, I think, if I'm correct.
I couldn't hear the last bit of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for your thoughts and for sharing all the views about the Afghani culture and how it was before and how it is now. I had a wonderful conversation with you. Moving on to our friends in Muzaffarabad. Thank you. Moving on to our friends in Muzaffarabad, I would just like to take a closing remark from them. How was the whole session for you? I understand that you guys were not able to attend the entire session, but thank you so much for joining in. And how was the session for you? And just some closing remarks from you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Chandra. I'm here. I'm discussing about the short briefing. One of the first people I made my language.
यही बोल रहा है
नहीं बोल रहा था।
बोलो
One of the first people I meet.
I feel like our friends in Afghanistan, in Muzaffarabad, are facing some technical issues with their Zoom call. Unfortunately, we are way over time. It is time to end our session. Thank you so much once again to our friends in Muzaffarabad and to our friends in Mayam for joining in and having this session. We will see you next month with another book, and inshallah, we'll be able to have a more productive conversation, and we will be able to resolve our technical issues as well. So, thank you so much, and Allah Hafiz from my side. Allah Hafiz.